Hi, I'm Angel Velez. I'm the creator of Silent Films Live and the conductor of the Hollywood Studio Chamber Orchestra. I'm delighted to be here with you as we're going to give you an insider look at Silent Films Live. We're going to take a look at the history of silent films, the actors, the music that was created, how it's all synchronized. It's a pretty cool process, one that I think you'll find pretty interesting. We're even give you a sneak peek look at the original 1928 Fox Studios organ. This instrument is almost 100 years old and had been used on classics such as Patton, Home Alone, The Sound of Music, but even on recent amazing films such as the Grinch new animation movie, The House with the Clock on Its Walls, and the new Addams Family remake. We've got a lot to get to, and I can't think of anyone better to start talking about this than my dear friend, the film music executive, the legendary one and only Mr. Robert Townsend. Robert?
Thank you very much, Angel. Silent films are what today's modern classics, such as Star Wars, Jurassic Park, or even It, trace their roots to. Each of these films are based off of two critical components for a wonderful cinematic experience: a great storyline and a musical score that pulls you out of your seat and into the world of movie magic. Without a doubt, each of us can name any number of movies that have had an impact upon us. But it all started a little over 100 years ago with the invention of the movie camera, taking a traditional theater experience and capturing it on film so that it could be experienced over and over again. The silent film era was born, and so also began the careers of the first movie stars such as Charlie Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, John Barrymore, and so many others. You may or may not recognize those names, but these were the first big Hollywood stars, and you'll also find their names literally on Hollywood Boulevard, with their stars on the Walk of Fame. They were the pioneers of the blockbuster film industry as we know it today. The first known silent film was created in 1888 by French inventor Louis Le Prince. Known as Round Hay Garden Scene, lasting only 2 seconds in length and filmed with a single-lens camera invented by the filmmaker himself. Let's take a look at something a little more advanced and certainly longer, the 1920 thriller Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. As you might expect, there is no sound at all, which creates a very unique experience. Could you imagine Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings without the music that we all know supporting the images that we see on screen? Just as a musician or even group of musicians might have accompanied the live action of a play or an opera production in years past, people already recognized that music plays an integral role in the experience an audience member could have. The hope being, music would further elevate the viewer's emotions and make it that much more immersive, like you were actually part of the story itself while safely viewing from your seat. So now comes along the musical experience. But first, let's watch this clip from the 1920 comedy classic 1 Week, starring Buster Keaton, where our main character is trying to move a piano into his new home, which he built all on his own, following the incorrect instructions on how to build it. Now let's add the music, here performed by an orchestra with the musicians of the Hollywood Studio Chamber Orchestra. Of course you all notice the difference, right? Adding the music elevates your emotions and how you feel about the movie and the characters themselves. This orchestra happens to use 24 musicians, which is a good-sized orchestra, But this was not a common experience when silent films first came on the scene. Adding an orchestra came about 10 years later when talkies, or movies with sound, first came out. Until then, music was played live to picture by a single instrument. Can you guess what instrument it might have been? If you guessed piano, you chose wisely. The great thing about using a piano is that you have 88 different notes that you can use to create sounds. But to take this idea even further, the organ was often used instead. But not just any organ, like you might find in a church. It was the mighty Wurlitzer organ, with over 1,500 pipes that could create countless sounds like a real orchestra, but only needing one person to play it. But what an utterly unique talent this demands. Let's take a look at the mighty Bar-Fox Wurlitzer.
It's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. These ghosts just come out. It just transports you to another place. It transports you to another time.
It has so much sonority and so much clarity.
It's not an organy sound.
Sitting in a room with a theater organ playing is a really amazing experience.
The robustness of the sound and the way the whole room would just vibrate, and you could feel it in your body.
It's a living, breathing thing.
You feel the history of movies. You feel the elegance of cinema, and it just gets into your soul.
This instrument is basically an early synthesizer version of an orchestra, created just to accompany silent film.
They were scoring and live foleying and live sound designing as the movie was playing. They always wanted the sound effects. They always wanted to get creative with car horns and music.
The possibilities that gives you for real-time performance and creativity is unparalleled.
All the little tinker toys and all the percussion things. It's a fabulous instrument.
How many keys and buttons and effects there are. I mean, it's a kid in the candy store. I can sit down here and just decide, you know what, I want some big trumpets, some orchestra bells. You can mix these together. Some strings, a xylophone, a clarinet, and a tuba.
What a spectacular instrument. Now let's dive into the process of how this music was actually created. First, the composer writes the music, either using a pencil and staff paper, or they have advanced computer software and equipment known as a DAW, or Digital Audio Workstation, where they can create music digitally. You might have actually already used a DAW if you've ever used programs such as Songmaker, GarageBand, Soundtrap, or Pro Tools. Once the music is written and created on paper that musicians can read, it goes over to the orchestra to be performed and recorded. But we're not done yet. Now the music has to be synchronized to the movie itself. Fortunately, we have software that can do this easily, but when this was first created, almost a century ago, the music teams had to find a creative solution to ensure that all of the music was aligned with the movie. There is no room for error at all. The sync has to be absolutely perfect, or it will be a total mess. Could you imagine if a door was slammed closed and the big orchestra hit sounded 3 seconds late, or early, or even 1 second off? It would be like watching a movie with a terrible lag. It totally changes the experience. So, the legendary composer Alfred Newman, who also created the famous 20th Century Fox fanfare logo, invented a system to help make sure that all of the music was synchronized and could play with the movie correctly. He created punches and streamers, a system where a separate identical copy of the film was used, but this time had the protective layer of emulsion scraped off to a particular length by the music editor to indicate when a specific moment was about to arrive by creating a large vertical line that moved from the left to the right side of the screen as the film itself was moving through the projector. The moment arrived with a big flash on the screen, which we call a punch, named simply because this was created using a hole punch. This system allowed for the conductor to use a very large screen at the back of the recording studio and see when the orchestra needed to speed up or slow down, and always stay together with the movie. This long and tedious process was crucial to ensuring that the music was properly synchronized. But today, luckily, this only takes a few clicks with software to help create the same seamless movie experience we have all come to expect. Here's an example, again from 1 week. This clip has the punches and streamers added to the movie, which is what the orchestra conductor would see. As a little exercise, try to clap at the exact moment the streamer has completed its move from the left to the right, and see if your clap aligns with the big white flash, known as the punch. How did you do? Don't worry if you didn't quite get it. It can take months of practice for professionals to make sure they get every punch, and requires the orchestra to watch the conductor very closely so they can adjust as necessary. Well, it's just about time for the orchestra and our conductor to get ready for the performance. But hopefully this experience has helped you with a better understanding of silent films and the impact music can have on the movie experience. From the talented composers, directors, actors, orchestra musicians, costume and lighting designers, and countless other individuals who work to help create movie magic, you can now consider yourself a film music insider who has the knowledge of the amazing era of silent films and how it created the essential building blocks for all of the incredible movies that have been created since then. Now let's turn back to our conductor Angel, who is getting the orchestra ready for Silent Films Live Halloween Uncancelled.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, well, it's just about showtime for us, but I encourage you and your teacher to test your new insider music and filmmaking knowledge. Perhaps grab a smartphone, find a DAW, remember a digital audio workstation, and create your own movie magic. I hope you've enjoyed this insider look into silent films and the making of it. I hope you enjoy Silent Films Live Halloween Uncancelled.